Okay, well, welcome everybody to the NAMA webinar on the state of state mushrooms by Rose Tursi. We're excited to host Rose today. And Rose, turn on your volume here and come in and say hi. I'll give a quick introduction. Rose lives near Olympia in Washington, out in the PNW, and she's a member of several mycological associations where we've been fortunate to run into her at the NAMA events, where she is the chair of the Visual Arts Committee. And she's also very involved with the Wisconsin Mycological Society, I think on the board. And then you're vice president of the, I want to say the South Sound Society. Did I get that right,
Yeah.
Rose?
South Sound Mushroom Club.
South Sound Mushroom Club. I just say society all the time. I think I'm wrong, maybe half the time. And Rose is an artist herself and has a lot of interest though in the state mushroom project. So we're excited to get an update on this this interesting development that's happening across all 50 states, or maybe across less states, but we hope it will be 50. So Rose, why don't you take over, give a little introduction, and I'll start up the video when you're ready.
All right, well, I'm Rose. Nice to meet everybody. I see several people I recognize in the chat. So hello, good to see you all. And I think that Trent gave a pretty good intro for me already. I move around a lot because I'm in a military family, and that's how I kind of have gotten involved in clubs all over the place, and why I'm still on the board in 2 clubs. But currently I'm near Olympia. I'm about 45 miles east of, or minutes east of Olympia, kind of out towards Mount Rainier area. So that's where I live now, in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, the way I like it. And I've been interested in this topic of state things for years. I got particularly interested in the state mushrooms when Washington State, way back in like 2018, maybe even earlier, tried to get the matsutake named as the Washington State mushroom and failed. But that's when I first became interested in the topic. So I put together this lecture for everyone this evening based on that love I've had for this topic, this weird niche thing. But I actually pre-recorded my lecture because that seemed easier than fumbling through a PowerPoint live, and Trent has it. So if you want to go ahead and just play the video, it's about 45 minutes long, and then I can do a Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions during the video, feel free to put the questions in the chat and I'll be watching it, and then I'll be able to answer any questions after the video ends.
Yep, put them in there, right in the Q&A. And also, it's a great time for anyone else if you want to chat on the side and have conversations. There's always a stream of conversations running along with the webinar, which is kind of cool. And the other thing is there is a view button in the upper right-hand corner. Sometimes you can change your view if you want to make it bigger or smaller, or see the video differently. So here we go. I'll start this up.
So I've always had an affinity for official state things. Many of you might have me as a friend on Facebook. This has been my profile picture for the last several years. It's me standing in the mouth of the giant muskie in Hayward, Wisconsin. Everyone who sees this picture thinks it's a dinosaur, but it's not. It's a fish. It's the official Wisconsin state fish. And tangent, since I've mentioned dinos, did you know there are 17 official and candidate state dinosaurs? And that list is completely separate from the 45 official state fossils, 14 of which also happen to be dinosaurs. But I digress. Here's me dressed as a pirate at the Tall Ship Festival in Dana Point. That's the Californian, which is the official tall ship of California. There are 19 official state ships. Most of them are tall ships, not all of them though. For example, this nuclear submarine is somehow the official ship of Colorado, a landlocked state. Don't worry though, the crew visited once. Heck, I even wrote and illustrated an entire book about a Garibaldi, which is the official California state marine fish, not to be confused with the official California state freshwater fish. There are 63 official state fish, by the way, because like California, many states have too. But let's talk about the origin of state symbols. Where did this trend of naming state symbols begin? The answer is the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. This was the origin of the concept of the state flower. A Congress of women from each U.S. state and territory was asked to choose a flower to represent their state's history, culture, and environment as part of the National Garland of Flowers. Here, I am very happy to report that my current state of residence, Washington, was the very first state to select a flower, the rhododendron. Women's clubs from around the country introduced bills at the state level to declare an official flower for their state, often involving school children in the selection process. Today, all states have an official flower. Canada decided to play this game too, and here are the provincial flower emblems of Canada. This began a trend that led to the adoption of official birds, then official trees, and eventually all the other official symbols recognized today. But how exactly is a symbol made official? Well, the details are a little different in each state, but generally, if you want an official state symbol, you first find legislators willing to sponsor a bill, so a senator or a House rep. You get one or more of them on board to write and file a bill. They are then debated and voted on in a committee hearing. Then they move to the chamber floor where there is more debate. To continue, the bill is passed by that chamber, then the bill crosses over to the opposing chamber. So if it originated in the House, it crosses over to the Senate or vice versa. The bill is heard in a committee in the new chamber, and then if that committee passes the bill, it moves to the chamber floor, and if the second chamber passes the bill, then it goes to the governor, who either signs it into law, vetoes it, or does nothing. Fun times. So, in addition to what I said earlier about flowers, birds, and trees, almost all states have official insects and animals. In addition, many specific types of animals are their own symbol. For example, 33 have official reptiles, 24 amphibians. Domesticated animals are a completely different category. There's 23 dogs and cats, 17 horses. Guess how many states have an official mushroom? Just 3. Here's some more state symbols that outnumber state mushrooms. Musical instruments, dances, shells, colors, sports, desserts, beverages, firearms, astronomy symbols, cooking implements. Seriously, 3 states alone have Dutch oven as their official cooking implement. 31 states have official soils. That's dirt, people. Dirt! 31 states have official dirt, but only 3 states have an official mushroom. Let that sink in. Needless to say, calling mushrooms underrepresented as state symbols is an understatement. But let's take a closer look at the 3 official ones, shall we? Minnesota was the first state to designate an official mushroom. The process started way back in 1983 at an MMS board meeting. MMS is Minnesota Mycological Society, and they're one of NAMA's affiliate clubs. They're actually one of the oldest, largest, and most active clubs, too. Anyway, my good friend Kathy Urich sent me this fun article written by an MMS member. You can find it on their website, and it tells the story. It came up at a board meeting in '83. Herb Harper, a former biology teacher, called his state senator, Gary Leidig, to propose the idea. Even though he initially thought it was a joke, Senator Leidig drafted a bill. And apparently it was controversial. Some folks complained it was frivolous. Some were worried it would bring outsiders to the state to take all their mushrooms. But it passed and was signed into law by Governor Rudy Perpich in 1984. But don't think you're off the hook, Minnesota. You may have been number 1, but you have some homework to do, my friends. Morchella esculenta is no longer the name. It changed. DNA analysis in 2012 showed that the yellow morels in North America were different enough from European yellow morels that they should be their own species. So the name was changed to Morchella esculentoides, and as of 2014, the preferred nomenclature is Morchella americana. Esculenta is now exclusively a European species. It was already revised once in 2004. It can be done again, so have at it, Minnesota. Moving on. In 1999, Oregon was the second state to designate a mushroom as an official symbol. Dr. Kevin Winthrop of the Oregon Mycological Society in Portland decided the state needed an official mushroom. So he went to his friend, Representative Chris Beck, to write a bill, HJR 68. They, along with other myco enthusiasts, met with legislators with cool facts, photos, receipts, etc., and they got 2 senators to agree to bipartisan support. But once again, there was controversy. The 1999 session was projected to be the longest ever. Some considered this a waste of legislators' time. This article says legislators passed more time arguing about how much time they were wasting than discussing the fungus itself. The bill ended up passing by a single vote. And that's how the Pacific golden chanterelle, Cantharellus formosus, became the Oregon state mushroom.
I learned Texas has a state mushroom. It's just the 3rd state to designate an official mushroom after Governor Abbott signed a resolution Friday. It's called a Texas star mushroom because of its shape. Apparently it's so rare, only a few hundred people have ever seen it. It can only be found in parts of central and northern Texas, Oklahoma, and Japan. The only other country it's ever been found is Japan. I think that's what I said there. Japan. Interesting. Yeah, I'm over here like, okay, state flower wasn't enough. We needed a mushroom. Okay, interesting. Y'all enjoy that.
That's right. Just this last summer, Corioactis gister was officially named as the Texas state mushroom. The fall 2021 issue of Fungi magazine had a really nice article about it, which also lists some general do's and don'ts for getting a state mushroom made official. It's a great magazine that you should subscribe to if you don't already. Now, even though this announcement about Texas getting a state mushroom seemed to come out of left field for a lot of people, this actually wasn't the first time there was an attempt to have this mushroom named as an official symbol of Texas. There was a failed attempt in 1997. So here side by side are the 2 bills, the failed 97 bill on the left and the successful 2021 bill on the right. There are some key differences in the verbiage that I'm certain made a huge difference. I got to chat with the person who almost single-handedly led this effort. For privacy reasons, she's asked me to refer to her only by her initials CY. Here's a direct quote from her. In 1997, they tried to pass it and failed, but they made mistakes in my opinion. They called it a fungus, which doesn't sound as appealing, and they also called it a devil's cigar. And I said no, it's a mushroom, not a fungus, and let's play to it being the Texas star because it's the symbol of the state. She basically went on to say the average Texan is going to be put off by a name like Devil's Cigar, and they're not going to remember Corioactis gister. But Texas Star, that's a name they can wrap their head around. And she actually told me a funny story when she was presenting the idea to House Rep Ben Lamont. He opposes gun control legislation, so when she met with him, she described it like a gun. When this mushroom opens, it does it with a pop. It blows smoke in your face, So he got on board. Another thing about the 97 bill was that it was only introduced in the Senate, and it never even made it out of the Senate. The 2021 bill was introduced as a companion bill in both the House and the Senate by House Rep Ben Lamont and Senator Donna Campbell as sponsors. Ben introduced his bill to the House subcommittee, and they voted, it went to the floor voted, then it crossed over to the Senate. This turned out to be good because the Senate bill that Donna presented died in committee. But then Ben's came over from the House to the Senate floor, and there it passed. And once it passed by the Senate, then it went to the governor's desk. And here's a video of that.
Senator Campbell, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on HCR 61.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're such a fun guy. I could not wait to bring up this bill because it doesn't take up mushroom. This bill.
How much room does it take up on your calendar?
Well, not mushroom. Okay. This bill serves to designate the Texas star mushroom as the official mushroom of the state of Texas. It resembles the star that adorns our Texas flag and is native only to Texas and Japan. And with that, head fungi of everybody, I move to suspend the regular order of business. Too much shrooms here.
Senator West, for what purpose?
Question of the author.
Do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator Campbell, mushrooms come from trees, is that correct?
Well, they grow in dark, warm, moist areas. And if that's on the bark of a tree or in the forest somewhere, yes.
So they come from trees, is that right? I mean, where do they come?
No.
Tell me, tell me about mushrooms.
They, some are edible. Some, when you eat them, they're complimentary to your meal. Some, when you eat them, you just take a trip and it doesn't cost you anything.
She passed a bill about that a little earlier.
Yes, I did. Psilocybin.
Do cows have anything to do with mushrooms?
No, but you know, cows must like them inherently because they provide a great fertilizer for these shrooms.
Fertilizer?
Fertilizer,
What
sir.
type of fertilizer do they provide?
The kind that stinks and is warm if you step in it.
So, that kind that stinks and you step in it, what type is that? Is there a name for it?
Manure.
Who?
Poop.
Poop?
Which is what we do see sometimes here.
Okay, I have a better understanding now, thank you.
Thank you, sir, and I would appreciate your vote for this mushroom bill. Resolution.
Senator Campbell moves suspension of the regular order on HCR 61. Any objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Gotta watch my fingers. The chair lays out the following resolution. The secretary will read the resolution.
HCR 61, designating the Texas star mushroom as the official state mushroom of Texas.
Senator Campbell, you're recognized for a motion.
I move adoption.
Senator Campbell moves adoption of the resolution on mushrooms. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham, Campbell.
There are 31 mushroom lovers and no mushroom haters. The adoption, very good. Do you like mushrooms, Tierson? Do you like mushrooms? No. No, he doesn't like mushrooms. So he's, I read it's 31-0.
He hasn't got a developed palate yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all mushroom lovers.
This is your mushroom session, Senator Campbell, you realize.
And it really hasn't taken up much room, has it? Thank you.
So, CY offered up this checklist for anyone elsewhere who wants to take this on. Create a digital binder as a placeholder for a lot of good information. She used Facebook because it's free and easy to use. Learn when the state and House of Representatives meet in session in your state. Get a sponsor in the House and the Senate, 2 people. Try to get past the guard dogs, administrative director, chief of staff, whatever. Create a compelling story and be a persuasive communicator. And partner with a team of experts who know the mushroom and can speak to the mushroom. Hey, remember when I said there were only 3 state mushrooms? That's actually only sorta true. Yes, there are only 3 official state mushrooms, but actually there's a few other state symbols that are in the fungal kingdom. So let's go on a little side tangent and talk about official state microbes. Yes, they are a thing. So a microbe is a microorganism that exists as a single cell or as a colony of cells. And I just had to screen grab this wiki article on state microbes because look who gets mentioned in the opening paragraph. It's Elio. Some of you might recall he was the guest speaker for last month's webinar on NAMA's art registry. Well, it turns out over 12 years ago, he was advocating for official state microbes. Wow, the more I learn about this guy, the cooler he gets. But anyway, there are 6 official and proposed state microbes. Most of these are bacteria, but 2 are fungi. Oregon was the very first state to get an official microbe, brewer's yeast, which is part of the fungal kingdom. In February 2013, the bill was introduced to the House where, unlike chanterelles that barely passed by a single vote, this passed by unanimous vote. Then it crossed over to the Senate where it passed by a vote of 28-2. The other state with an official fungal microbe is Illinois, with Penicillium rubens. That's the strain of mold where the world's first antibiotic, penicillin, comes from. This is also the most recent. It passed right around the same time Texas got its mushroom. The idea was first conceived by Gary Kusniar after listening to an NPR broadcast of All Things Considered about state microbe designations. He teamed up with Dr. Neil Price to form the Illinois State Microbe Designation Project. Penicillium rubens was decided on as a good candidate. World War II necessitated moving the work on penicillin to the United States, where industrial supplies were not as constrained for the war effort. It was in Peoria, Illinois, where the strain having the highest production was found on a moldy cantaloupe. This led to a major breakthrough in isolating higher-yielding strains and methods for industrialized production of penicillin, all of which was developed in Illinois between 1941 and 1943.
Well, in other news, it is official. Illinois now has a state microbe. Governor J.B. Pritzker signing on the dotted line and making Penicillium rubens the official state microbe of Illinois. How exciting! A moldy cantaloupe from a Peoria farmers market holding the key to mass produce penicillin in World War II. State Senator Dave Kaler sponsored that legislation.
But wait, there's more. One solitary state has an official lichen. This is Ramalina menzitzii, aka the lace lichen, the official state lichen of California. Lichens are a composite organism made up of fungi living together with algae or cyanobacteria in a mutualistic relationship. The California Lichen Society decided that designating an official lichen was an important step in increasing public awareness of the roles lichens play in our natural environment. They found a congressman who took up their cause and slipped it into a larger bill that was already moving through on water and environmental safety, which actually makes a lot of sense since lichens are known for their sensitivity to pollution and climate, and are actually being used in California to monitor air quality and climate change. Some of the qualities that were listed are that it's easy to recognize, common throughout much of the California, and strikingly beautiful. Here's a photo of me geeking out over some lace lichen a couple months ago when I was snowbirding down in Cali. So there you have it, all of the official state mushrooms and official mushroom adjacent type symbols. Now, let's look at a couple of the failures. I am very sad to report that my state of residence is one of them. In 2017, a bill proposing matsutake, or the American pine mushroom, as the official mushroom of Washington state was introduced to the legislature. The idea for the bill came from students at the Evergreen State College at Olympia. Representative Lori Dolan sponsored the bill. Now, those of you who have ever read one of these amazing books know matsutake is actually a really interesting choice as a Washington state mushroom. There's a whole underground subculture of commercial pickers revolved around this thing, and it's sometimes been referred to as the most expensive mushroom in the world. Beyond that, though, it's actually a rather sensible choice. Even though it's called the pine mushroom, here in the Pacific Northwest, it primarily associates with western hemlock, which is the Washington state tree. Now, if you'll recall, the Pacific golden chanterelle is the Oregon state mushroom, which usually associates with Douglas fir, which is also the Oregon state tree. So it just kind of makes perfect sense. It's like poetry. Anyway, the bill passed the committee, but it never even got a vote in the full House. A similar bill was introduced the next year with a companion bill in the Senate. In the meantime, the species name changed from Tricholoma magnivelari to Tricholoma muralienum when they split American matsutake into two species, one for the east and one for the west. The House bill at least contained an amendment which showed the name change, but it just never got anywhere. Missouri introduced a bill in 2011 that proposed the smooth chanterelle, Cantharellus laterideus, as the state mushroom. I actually kind of had a hard time finding info about this one. All the links on the government website are dead, but I did find this one article which It's actually kind of a goofy article with some head-scratcher lines in it. It pits chance against morels like those are the only two conceivable options for a state mushroom. But it does explain that the bill was sponsored by Representative Kathleen Fairs at the urging of the Missouri Mycological Society. It also quotes Maxine Stone, who spoke at the committee. And for the record, Maxine is the past president of MOMS and one of the main organizers of NAMA's Continental Foray happening in the Missouri Ozarks later this year. It was shot down by Representative Kushner, and this is a quote. "To make this the state mushroom when everyone in this room has heard of the morel would be a travesty. I just can't believe that we'd do something like that to our public citizens of the state of Missouri." Anyways, let's move on to happier subjects. Current efforts that are looking good. There are 2 states that are currently practically just on the verge of getting an official state mushroom. In fact, I truly believe that had the pandemic not stalled everything, these would both already be official. And I gotta say, I absolutely love the proposed mushrooms in both of these states. First, let's talk about Massachusetts and the giant puffball. It started in late 2018 when a high school student and a member of the Boston Mycological Club asked Senator Cindy Friedman to petition the giant puffball as the Massachusetts state mushroom.
Furthermore, it's really iconic, which is important for it to become our state icon. So, our state mushroom icon. And it's really big. It's really pretty. I suggest you all look into it. It's a beautiful mushroom. It's edible. And yeah, again, it's very important ecologically. Fungi in general are underappreciated organisms. They're extremely important to the environment. And they're also a good source of food. And I think this would be a step in the right direction to recognize this kingdom. So Minnesota and Oregon already do have state mushrooms. And the giant puffball mushroom, like by declaring it our state mushroom, you could recognize this humble yet fascinating part of our natural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So just in conclusion, one of the many things I learned from Liam is that Boston is the home to the oldest amateur mycological club in the United States, the Boston Mycological Club. It was founded in 1895, making it all the more fitting that Massachusetts recognized one of its native fungi in this way. And I think the giant puffball mushroom seems the perfect candidate. I would also like to acknowledge Liam for the work he's done to bring this bill before us. It is heartening and humbling to when you meet students in our Commonwealth who are committed and care so much about a subject and are willing to go through all of the steps that we need to do to become a bill. So I really want to acknowledge Liam and tell you all how proud I am of Liam and the town of Arlington. So thank you very much for your consideration.
So that bill was from mid-2019, and well, we all know what happened not long after that. Everything kind of just stalled for a time. But just very recently, Senator Friedman reintroduced the bill, and it's been seen very favorably. So I'm confident Massachusetts just might be the next state to get an official fungus. And by the way, for anyone watching this who happens to be in Massachusetts, be sure to write to your congressperson to ask for their support of this bill. Not that this is a race or anything, but there's actually one other state that's super close. They might even beat out Massachusetts. I'm talking about New York and Lactarius peckii. This was first proposed by Tom Bigelow and Sigrid Jacob from the New York Mycological Society to raise awareness to the public about mushrooms and how crucial fungal diversity is to the Earth's ecosystem. This mushroom also honors 2 great New York State mycologists, Gertrude Simmons Burlingham, who first described it in 1908, and Charles Horton Peck, for whom she named it. I got to chat with Michael Moser, a key player in all this, and she offered up a little more insight. They very specifically did not want to choose a choice edible mushroom to discourage foraging from becoming super popular or people accidentally poisoning themselves. They also did not want to choose a poisonous mushroom. What they really wanted was to move the conversation away from eating fungi and focus more on ecology and conservation. They also wanted a mushroom that spoke to New York in a very specific way. Burlingham was born in New York and was one of the first women to get an advanced degree, but she couldn't get a job because no one would hire a woman. She ended up teaching high school in Brooklyn, but continued her mycological research in her spare time. She was important in developing key techniques in identifying Russula, and she described this mushroom and named it in honor of Peck, who was another super important New York State mycologist, possibly one of the greatest mycologists in the world, and an incredibly important figure in the establishment of mycology in the U.S. It's also a mushroom that supports oaks, among other trees. It's super important for the health of New York State forests. If you are in New York, I encourage you to reach out to your congressperson for their support of this Senate bill naming Lactarius peckii as the official mushroom of New York State. Now, there are other states where stuff is happening. I recently got to chat with Alan DeSosa, who's heading up efforts in California. He first became aware of state mushrooms around the time California got an official lichen. There were even some early efforts within the Mycological Society of San Francisco to get candy caps named as the state mushroom that kind of just fizzled out. It was decided that they needed to take a more egalitarian approach, so they reached out to all the other clubs and relevant organizations throughout the state to get nominations, then narrowed it down to 6 species. And they are black trumpet, Craterellus calicornicopioides. That's fun. California golden chanterelle, Cantharellus californicus. Candycap, Lactarius rubidus. King bolete, Boletus edulis var grandegulus. Lion's mane, Hericium erinaceus. And western jack-o'-lantern, Omphalodus olivescens. Now, they teamed up with the California Institute of Biodiversity and Action Network to create a way so that anyone living in the state of California could vote online or by text. And by the way, this is super recent. Voting only closed on this a few days ago. So the next step is to take the winner and write and file a bill. Because this is the North American Mycological Association, I'd like to include Canada and Mexico in this as much as I can. Even though I've complained that there's only 3 official state mushrooms, at least that's something. There's 0 in Canada, and as far as I could figure out, Mexico doesn't really do state symbols. But I see no reason why it should stay that way. Maybe the best way to get the ball rolling is with mushrooms. They're historically underappreciated, but they're currently pretty trendy. Maybe we should be taking advantage of that trend. At the very least, we should be starting the discussion on what mushroom best represents the place where you live. Sometimes the answer is obvious, other times not so. And sometimes the answer seems obvious on the surface, but is way more complicated when you really start to think about it. For example, last summer at NAMA's Continental Foray in Colorado, past President Barbara Ching and I chatted about her home state of Iowa, and she very matter-of-factly stated that the natural choice for Iowa would be corn smut. Eustalagomates is a fungus that causes galls to form on corn. It's also delicious. This is a direct quote from Barbara. I love to eat it. Before the ear is too infected, it's adorable to look at. And everywhere you look in Iowa, there is corn. I grew up in Iowa. I don't think I've ever lived anywhere without a cornfield in my vision. Iowa needs to have a mushroom that grows in a cornfield. Now, I don't know a whole lot about Iowa, but I do know that it's full of corn. So on the surface, this seemed like a natural choice to me too. But when NAMA's first Vice President Dave Layton, who is also from Iowa, heard about this, he disagreed. And I have to say, he made a pretty convincing argument. He pointed out that most Iowans see corn smut as a blight on their crops. They hate it. Corn smut would be a better choice for a Mexican state where it's actually appreciated, because in Mexico, this smut is a delicacy called huitlacoche. It's treasured. Here's a direct quote. Our state is really ruled by the chemical agricultural complex, and our legislature is also ruled by special interests. And if we were going to have a state mushroom, it wouldn't do well for it to be one that winds up on the Monsanto death list. Iowa is Roundup ready. Corn alcohol, corn ethanol, etc. None of those things work with corn smut. But with that said, it would almost be a better thorn in their side for it to be corn smut. Maybe it would get people to think about how we're destroying our ecosystem. But Dave did also offer up an alternate choice, and I gotta say I really like it. His choice? The knothole mushroom, Hypsizygis ulmarius. And I gotta say I also really love that he calls it a knothole mushroom. The more common name for this one is elm oyster, which I've always thought was a stupid name, seeing as it's neither an oyster nor does it typically grow on elm. But knothole mushroom actually makes perfect sense, because that's exactly where you always find it, growing out of knotholes. Here's another quote from Dave. The knothole mushroom is like Iowans. It's not flashy, it's not a bright color, it's good to eat, but it's not so amazing in flavor that it causes it to be overrated. It's just the most ordinary mushroom you can find, and maybe that in itself is a virtue, like the people of Iowa. Ordinary and common, and yet so many famous people have come from here. Why not? Corn smut is far more than Monsanto thinks it is, but I just can't see getting an Iowa legislator on board with it. And that's why I like the knothole mushroom. And hey, even I can draw one, and you don't even have to color them in. I've actually been asking a lot of folks, both in person and online, what their pick would be for a mushroom representative of where they live, and I've noticed a trend. The vast majority of answers are some variation on morels or chanterelles. Now, I've tried to be positive or at least unbiased up to this point, but now I'm going to share a strong opinion. The fungal kingdom is huge. Estimates suggest there's somewhere between 2.2 and 3.8 million species, with almost 150,000 of those currently described by science. Surely, with all of these options, we can come up with something besides morels and chanterelles. I mean, I get it. They're yummy and fun to hunt, but they're everywhere. I urge you to look deeper and find a mushroom that speaks specifically to your state or province. This is why I love Corioactis gister and Lactarius pecii. They're unique. They have great stories behind them. They're compelling. And no other state will ever pick them. And why would they? These mushrooms speak specifically to Texas and New York. I decided to ask this question again to a particular group of people, rephrased to discourage these widely hunted species. And since we haven't really talked about this state yet, and I happen to know a lot of mycophiles in it, we're going to take a closer look at Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is one of those states that seems to love state symbols. They're even one of the dirt states. So it's actually a little surprising that they don't have a state mushroom. I had a roundtable Zoom discussion with members of the Wisconsin Mycological Society to discuss mushrooms that stood out as potential symbols of the Badger State, and these are a few of the species discussed. First, we looked at mushrooms endemic to Wisconsin, species that have not been found anywhere else. The first is an undescribed Phaeocalybia that has only ever been found a few times on Madeline Island in Lake Superior. At first glance, it just looks like a regular old mushroom, but if you pull it out carefully, it has this ridiculously long and impressive taproot-like structure. It's definitely unique and cool, but at the moment, not a whole lot is known about it, and it doesn't even have a name, so it's unlikely to be a great candidate. Wisconsin also has Amanita schwamiganensis. It was named by Britt Bunyard after Wisconsin's Schwamigan-Nicolet National Forest where it was discovered. But in the end, it was generally agreed that even though these two mushrooms have only ever been observed in Wisconsin and nowhere else, they were both a bit too rare and esoteric for a state symbol. Melissa Klaka, who's a board member for WMS, approached the question from a completely different perspective. She didn't care about exclusivity. She felt the best way to represent her home state was through good home cooking. For her, the answer was easy. Maitake, hen of the woods, Grifola frondosa. As she put it, Wisconsin is such a friendly state and it's perfect to share. It's a big enough mushroom that you can split it with your neighbors and have plenty to spare. Tavis Lynch, venerable mushroom cultivator and quite possibly the most knowledgeable person when it comes to the fungal species of Wisconsin, also had an interesting opinion. Marasmus rotula, aka the pinwheel mushroom, because they are common, dainty, and beautiful, just like Wisconsin's state flower, the wood violet. Every floor in Wisconsin's forests are littered with them, and it would be a fun and educational activity for kids to go out and find the state mushroom. While they're not commonly eaten, I did find some century-old recipes noting that they can be added to gravies, and when used to garnish venison, adds an appropriate touch of the wild woodlands. I like it. Dr. Tess Kenny, president of WMS, really had a fascinating and unusual suggestion. Chlorosaboria arugonescens, the elf cup fungus. An unusual choice, but a worthy one nonetheless. These tiny cup-shaped saprobic mushrooms grow on dead hardwoods and are super easy to miss when they're fruiting, but evidence of their presence can be found on every trail in Wisconsin nearly any time of year. This mushroom contains a pigment which stains the wood that it's growing on a striking blue-green color. This spalting is color-fast and permanent, which is why it's so highly prized in decorative woodworking and inlay, dating back centuries. Here's a quote from Tess. "The color reminds me of the Great Lakes. I just really like the symbolism in that. There's also something just so magical about the name elf cups. Then I found out that the fungus spalted the wood and gave it new color, which is why it's sought after by carpenters and craftspeople. So not only is it beautiful when it fruits, but it leaves traces that last for centuries in works of art and furniture and becomes integral to the home. I think about the seafarers and the craftspeople that came from one world to another and discovered a similar fungus here, and how happy they must have been. You find the wood a lot, but you don't find the fruiting mushroom very often, which makes it special. And when you do find it, it's beautiful. Just beautiful." Tess was so passionate about Chlorosaboria, she managed to persuade several other members to agree with her. So who knows? Maybe we'll be seeing elf cups soon in the Wisconsin legislature. So before I close, I'm just going to throw a few ideas out there. This is nothing serious, just potential candidates that jumped out to me. For Maine, how about the lobster mushroom, Hypomyces lactiflorum? It pairs naturally with the state's official crustacean, which is an actual lobster. For Michigan, how about the humongous fungus, Armillaria gallica, a colony of honey mushrooms? Sure, it's not actually the most humongous fungus. Oregon has a bigger colony of honeys, but Oregon already has a state mushroom, and Michigan's has the better name and marketing. For an actual humongous fungus, how about the American Titan, Microbes titans? You've probably seen these viral photos. They make the rounds every now and then on Facebook. And no, that's not Photoshop. They're actually that big. The cap can measure more than 3 feet in diameter. So they're not a toadstool, they're a human stool. They're edible too. They're a tropical species native to South and Central America and Florida. So could this be a candidate for Florida? How about the Rocky Mountain Red, Boletus rubiceps, for Colorado? Tasty, delicious, and native to the Rockies. These are all really just ideas. I encourage you to think about a mushroom with a connection to where you live. And I hope this has been fun and informative for you, and that it inspires you to work on having a mushroom named as an official symbol in your state, province, or territory, wherever that may be. But hey, if going through the legislative process seems like too much, there is another way you can get involved. This year, the theme of NAMA's Visual Arts Contest is state mushrooms. We're asking you to think about what fungus you believe best represents your favorite state, province, or territory, and use that as a jumping-off point and inspiration for your art piece. We're encouraging an open and creative interpretation of the theme, and this is open to everyone living in North America. The winners will receive a 1-year membership to NAMA. The contest details are all available on our website right now, so for all you artsy mushroom lovers out there, go nuts! One last thing. I'd already finished editing this video when I got a last-minute request, and this clip has so much good info that I had to share it with you. Enjoy! Hi, my name is Michael Moser. I'm with the New York Mycological Society, and I have been helping with a project to get us a state mushroom. The mushroom we nominated is Lactarius peckii. In English, that's Peck's milk cap. The first question that we often get is why a state mushroom? And what we have been arguing is that it's important to promote awareness of the fundamental ecological role that mushrooms play. They're necessary for forests to thrive. And also they store gigantic quantities of carbon, thereby helping to mitigate climate change. Why the Lactarius peckii? For one thing, it's found throughout New York City. It supports hardwood forests, which are central to New York State, the self-identity of New York State, the tourism industry, and how people just generally like to spend their time. It's named for 2 important New York scientists that we want to celebrate. The first scientist is Charles Horton Peck, who is the New York State Museum botanist from 1866 through 1913. Discovered and described 2,700 species and varieties of fungi. It's astonishing. And if not single-handedly, almost single-handedly put New York State on the map scientifically. It was named for Peck by the under-celebrated mycologist Gertrude Simmons Burlingham, who earned her PhD in 1908. And pioneered techniques that are still used for identifying mushrooms such as russulas. But she was not able to get a job as a woman. And so a paid job as a mycologist because she was a woman. And so she taught high school in Brooklyn, and in her spare time, she still managed to discover, name, and describe over 100 species. Lactarius peckii is not poisonous, nor is it edible. So we also don't have to worry about people rushing into the forests and destroying themselves or other living things. In terms of where we are in the process, we have a Senate sponsor, Michelle Hinchy, and the Senate bill is S8039. So if you're from New York, please go and write a letter to her, thanking her. But we have no sponsor in the Assembly, and we have only 9 days left in the legislative session. So this has been our second try, and it looks like we're going to have to do a third try. It has been a really important lesson for us. In terms of advice that I can offer, I would say distribute your work broadly because this is a marathon, not a sprint, and 1 or 2 people will burn out. Support people who are doing the work. Make sure that you're saying thank you and make sure that you're offering to help. If possible, if you have anybody in your group that has insight into how the state legislature works and who's who in the state legislature, listen to them because that's going to help you enormously in terms of focusing your energies, getting the bill sponsored in the first place. Be mindful of the legislative calendar and also be mindful of the bicameral system because you're going to need 2 sponsors, one in your assembly and one in your Senate. I assume all states are the same. Have your communication materials available from very early on in the process. I would say these should include a great letter to send to your representatives asking them to sponsor the bill, and then additional letters that club members can send to their representatives supporting the bill once it's been sponsored. Some beautiful photos of the mushroom are going to be useful everywhere, all the time. Include a spot on the club's website with information about the state mushroom and sample letters for people to send once the state mushroom bill has been sponsored. Include articles in your club's newsletter, and then include updates on the process in your club's newsletter. Have fact sheets with talking points so that everybody in your club can have an idea what the mushroom looks like and what is fantastic about this mushroom that is going to be, we hope, representing your state. Have a list of any media contacts you have in the group and contact them. And have a plan for social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even TikTok. And good luck.
All right, thanks, Rose. That was just awesome. Very educational and also very entertaining. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see some questions rolling in here. I think you can see those too.
Yeah, let me take a look.
Um,
Well, there was one in the chat that asks my opinion on why mushrooms are so popular at this time. And do you think they will just continue to be more popular with access to more info about them in the past? Okay, it goes on. That's a good question. And I'm not entirely sure why they're suddenly super popular. But I think maybe there wasn't a whole lot known about them before. And it's just become very recently that we're starting to learn more about them. And I think that's kind of snowballing and the reason why it's becoming more popular just in general. But I mean, I think it was it in 69 that the fungal kingdom was separated out from the plant kingdom? I mean, it's so recent when you think about that. That like they weren't even their own kingdom before, just like the last, in people's lifetime. There are people in this chat that probably were alive in 69. So maybe that has something to do with it. Most of these are just thanking me. So mushrooms to learn writes, where can we give recommendations to get a state mushroom? I would say I kind of geared this lecture to our affiliate clubs. So if you're a member of one of NAMA's affiliate clubs, I would start there with people in your club that would be interested in nominating a mushroom. And then like it is said multiple times in the video, get a state rep or a senator on board, or preferably both, get one of each on board so that they can write a bill and get it submitted, get it filed. Ooh, Brooke Reed says, what about a national mushroom for all of the USA? And that is also an awesome idea. We do have national symbols. In fact, I did say Mexico doesn't really seem to do state symbols, but they absolutely do national symbols. But they don't have a national mushroom. So that's a good place to start. A national mushroom for all of the USA. What would it be? What would you pick as the national mushroom for all of the US? Another question says, is the matsutake dead for Washington, or is it still happening? It's basically dead. There's been no movement on that since 2018, but maybe we should change that now that I'm living back in Washington full time, because I was not here the last few years. Maybe it's something I'll try to get the ball rolling with my local club. So it was actually the people who originated that were students at Evergreen, which is also in Olympia. So that was actually local to me. Someone asked, what is my favorite mushroom to forage? I like all of them. I don't have a favorite. I like the ones that are not edible too. I do a lot of arts and crafts, so I'm always collecting weird things for arts and crafts purposes. Hang on, I gotta scroll up to see more of these. Okay, so C resident, which is, that's the person in Texas, by the way, CY. Get ready to have as many people as possible in your state's mycological societies to either offer to speak, offering to support the bill or resolution, or to send letters in support. In Texas, hundreds of people wrote in to the Central Texas Mycological Society. So, and that's true. Get everyone in your community on board with it. Get everyone excited. Susan asked, do you think that involving school kids is more likely to succeed? Yes, it really would. People love little kids. Little kids are cute. If you get a little kid up there to talk about the mushroom bill, then everyone's going to go, oh, we got to vote for that. No one would veto that because they'd be the jerk that shot down the little kids. So absolutely get your kids involved. There's no shame in getting little kids to support your mushroom bill. Do you have to wait a certain amount of time before reintroducing a bill? I don't think so. Every state's a little different though. So I'm not going to say for certain because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. What do you find in Washington foraging that you can't find in Wisconsin? That's a big question. There's a lot there's a lot of stuff that's here but not there, and vice versa. So too many to name. For Colorado, if you want a russula, how about Zoramphalina or the shrimp russula? Sure, why not? I have no connection to Colorado, so I have no opinion. Were there any other questions? I think I got all of them. I don't think I missed any. I'm scrolling up again. There was kind of a lot of them all at once.
Yeah, Pat has a question about the data on frequent finds per state from the NAMA forays.
Oh.
I know that we have the data on the mushrooms that we find, but I don't think frequency would be one of the things that are measured. It's just a species count. I think you probably have to go look at iNaturalist, where they do have frequency in a state, keeping in mind that it's also the frequency is based on kind of what people are looking for and putting in iNaturalist. So often common or obscure mushrooms don't really get into iNaturalist with the same frequency as some of the more, let's say, charismatic mushrooms.
Well, I don't see any more questions, but I do want to thank, I want to say something actually. I apologize because I did have photo credits on almost all of those images and they all got cut off in the video. There's like a strip, the bottom strip of the video. I don't know if actually you tell me, on my screen that was all cut off. So apologies if I used your photo and you didn't have a photo credit. Almost all of them were at the bottom, which got cut off. And I wanted to thank everyone that really helped me with this, which I noticed a lot of them are here watching. So a lot of the people that I named in the video are here in the chat. So thank you again. I couldn't have done it without your help putting this together. Oh, Brooke says he could see the credits. That's good. Okay. Some of them were at the top. A few of them were at the top, so they showed up, but most of them were at the bottom of the screen. So.
And a big thank you for you. I mean, I know you spent a lot of time researching this and not just putting together your research for us, but putting it together in a really entertaining fashion. It was just really, really well done. And we all know that. So thanks so much for just hitting a home run here for us. And we'll be putting this up on YouTube here in the next couple of days, I hope.
Cool. And everyone else, if you're artistic, enter the art contest. It does not cost anything to enter. You do not have to be a member of NAMA. Anyone in North America can submit art. Your kids can submit art, and any form of art is accepted. And the theme is state mushrooms, and you can interpret that as broadly as you would like. Be creative, and you might win a free membership to NAMA. So be sure to check it out. It's on our homepage under the arts tab on the homepage. So it's namyco.org. Is the title of your presentation connected to the oops, hold on, I scrolled up. Let me go back up. State of the World's Fungi from 2018. No, it's not. I just thought saying the state of state mushrooms was alliterative and fun. And I've actually been calling this my state of state mushrooms address, which I thought was pretty funny. Let's see. Maybe we can use Monama to reinvigorate the Mo effort. Oh, that reminds me. I did in California, the vote to get the California mushroom. I did find out just a couple hours ago from Alan that the winner of that was the California Golden Chanterelle, which was not what I would have picked, but that's the one that won. So the California Golden Chanterelle they're going to write a bill, and they have a sponsor already, someone willing to sponsor it. And
which one were you rooting for?
Handicaps.
Me too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyone, I mean, I lived in California for like 20 years. So I felt very connected to that. And to me, it was a no-brainer. Like, oh yeah, candy caps. Like, even before knowing what the options were, I was like, well, I mean, if I had a list of obvious choices for states, which I kind of did towards the end with like the lobster for Maine, and California and candy caps would have, that to me is what I would pick number one. But apparently I'm in the minority. Other people wanted another chanterelle.
When Soma was going to happen, I know there were 5 of us that were going. I see Kathy on here. And, we were going to dress as those 5 mushrooms for the costume, the costume celebration there. So I was going to be the Hericium, but didn't happen. Got canceled because of COVID.
Hericium would be really funny because you could just have you can make it like a mane around your.
Oh no, I had a whole like wood outfit and some. I would have had, of course, probably inappropriately placed mushrooms on my body.
Oh, see, to me, lion's mane. I would have made like a mane of Hericium around your face. Brooke says another chanterelle. Darn it! So someone else agrees with me. Too many chanterelles, and I gotta say, like, the California Golden Chanterelle is like morphologically almost identical to the Pacific Golden Chanterelle, which is the official mushroom of Oregon. So that's kind of why I feel a little bit like wah wah. When I heard that, I was like,
The people spoke though.
They did. It was very democratic how they had that vote. So can't complain, I guess.
That is the one they call the mud puppy, isn't it? That kind of wet, soggy, dirty one we find there sometimes.
Yep, that's it. Upfront cost for state plates. Ooh, state license plates. Upfront costs for the plate, but once 800 are sold, the money is returned. Oh, I think I missed the first half of that one. Sorry.
Trying to get license plates with the mushrooms on them too.
Oh, it's a bunch of people talking about. Yeah, I would absolutely get a vanity plate with the state fungus on it. That I would pay money for that. The Chicago chanterelle. You know what? I know that Dr. Patrick Leacock was the one that, or he'd either described it or co-described it, but I want to say they think it's a lot more widespread than initially thought. And again, yeah, okay, everyone likes chanterelles. I'm talking about Illinois. People are talking about this mushroom, this chanterelle that's only been found in Illinois. I mean, it's just another chanterelle. And before DNA sequencing, there weren't a million different species of chanterelle. There were just a couple, and it's only been really recent that we've been even naming these different chanterelle species as their own thing. And again, like, let's dig a little deeper with this. We can probably find something besides a chanterelle for your state. But I mean, I know that's just my opinion, but maybe it's because I love all mushrooms and I love the whole ecology around mushrooms, not just the ones that are good to eat. But it's going to be pretty boring if like 45 of the 50 states are chanterelles and morels.
Yeah, that would be.
Sorry, that's my little mini rant.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up on your mini rant note and call it. And thank you, everybody, again, and thank you, Rose, especially for just putting on a killer presentation. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.